Now we're back in RUS3, and we're now going through how do we read the Bible meter in Matthew 24, just right here. See, here's Matthew 24. How do we read it for this guy? I really don't like the way Zoto works. How do we read it for this guy? Ivan Kalita. Period is from 1288 to 1340. And we terminated the last increment by starting with his birth year, which is right up here. Ultimate last clause in Matthew 24:38. Greek word is akri, and it means until. So if you open up your English Bibles and you look up the word until in Matthew 24:38, you're at the same place that I am in when I'm talking. All right. That is the very first word in this clause, which is now 3 from the bottom. And the first word, therefore, is the next year. So instead of being 1257 plus 30 equals 1287, it's 1288. At this Greek word, akri, meaning until. And again, the translation of this clause that you will have in your English is until the days that Noah went into the boat. The last word there, kiboton, means boat, which means that at the end, at the very end, 1273 is is the number. You add 30, that's 1303 AD. That means that there's some kind of cataclysm that's going to start just after 1303 AD. That's what the text is telling you. Now, our boy, Ivan, was born 1288. 1288, and 12 means he was 12 years old. All right? By 1303, that's 3 more years from 2000. Well, you can even say 4. So 12 plus 4, he's 16. Okay? So the text is marking off the time of his own life and making an important statement of some kind. We don't know yet what. About 1303, when he was 16, 15, 16. Now that matters a lot because this is written in Greek, but it's written to people under the Roman Empire. And 15 was a very important year in the Roman Empire. And, you know, you're supposed to interpret the Bible the way it was written in the culture it was written at the time, and then you try to find cultural equivalents today in order for people today to understand it. Well, the only culture today that makes an issue of age 15 is Mexico. Your 15th birthday is a big deal in Mexico. It was a big deal in ancient Rome. In ancient Rome, you were considered to be a man at age 15. You got what was called the toga virilis, which is this big, heavy, ugly, uncomfortable thing that you had draped in a specific way about your body to show that you were a patrician. And that was, toga means this ugly, floppy, big piece of cloth that's draped specially around you. It takes 4 people to put it on you. And then virilis means of man. You are now manhood. You are now a man. In Jewish custom, it's age 12 for male or female. Okay, like I had a bat mitzvah when I was 12. Okay? In Roman culture, which is, you got to interpret Matthew in light of Roman culture, even though it's written in Greek, that was the 15th birthday. So the Bible's making an important statement about this guy at his 15th birthday, which is his 16th year. Okay? And nobody really knows if he was born in November. All right, so we're not necessarily talking November 1303. In fact, we're going to see in the next clause that we're probably using the Bible's fiscal year for Jews of the sacred year, which runs from the vernal equinox to the next vernal equinox. And he dies 10 days after the vernal equinox begins, on the same day that Christ was arrested. This is kind of important to know. All right. So we're looking at right in the right hand corner, third from the last. 1273 plus 30 equals 1303 or 1304. Probably the Bible's going to use 1304 if of March fiscal. All right, for this guy. Some kind of changeover. He's the changeover guy. We know that from Akri, the year of his birth. And now it's a question of what is that changeover? Well, we're being told the character of it is going to be like the flood. But his first 15, 16 years are relatively calm. It's when he's 15, 16 that something bad starts to happen. What is that? Well, we're going to find out. I don't know right now. I'm just telling you, this is what the text is saying. And then you have to go look at the actual history to find out what it's talking about. See, this is very precise. And when you add it up to the history, you go look at the history, and when it keeps on being right over and over and over and over again, then you start to say, wait a minute, there's really a God here. Because only God can, satirize time. He's satirizing the future. He is satirizing Ivan Moneybags because of the kind of thing that's going to happen under this guy. All right? So his life starts out being marked. His birth is marked with Akri until this guy. Everything was normal. And this guy's whole first 15, 16 years is like the hiatus between normal and bad. And in 1303 AD, it goes from warning to, okay, flood's beginning now. All right? And that's going to be the next verse, 39. Okay? Verse 39a reads, and they didn't know until the cataclysm, the flood, came. All right? They didn't know that it was going to happen. They had no idea. Doesn't matter what Noah warned them. Doesn't matter the streams of animals coming for 120 years. It might as well have been nothing. They didn't listen to him, in other words. They didn't pay attention to the facts. All right? So Christ is saying at the beginning of Matthew 24:39, which is 1304 in our timeline, and until, and they didn't know, uk means didn't, agnosan means no, eus is another word for until, elten came, ho cataclysmos, cataclysmos. I think that it's cataclysmos, but you go down in your voice at the last syllable. Cataclysmos means the cataclysm. That's where we get English cataclysm. And it's talking about the flood. Okay, and took them all away. Kai, Aden, Apantas. Took them all away. Until the flood. In other words, they didn't believe anything until the flood would actually hit them. Physically hit their bodies. And took them away. They didn't understand. Now, I'm going to do a sidetrack here. A lot of people say God is cruel and bad because he does stuff like this. What can you do to make Trump wake up and smell the coffee? Answer is nothing. Okay? So finally, at some point, the infection is so bad, you just got to kill him. And the example being given here in the text is that what's going to happen in this period from 1304 until 1322, all right, in the beginning of verse 39, that people are so freaking stupid The signs are all about them that everything's going wrong. And they're like deer in the headlights with this. Okay? They didn't know until the flood actually hits them and takes them all away. What kind of flood is that for Russia? Well, preview of coming attractions. He's the guy that basically does. He's like a one-man flood. It's basically it. He's a really bad ruler. He's lauded by history because he united Russia. Well, that's not really true what he did. He just killed enough people so that the remaining people gave in. That's how bad it was. He's like a one-man wrecking ball, a one-man flood. Starting at age 16 somehow. We don't know how. I have to look up the history. Okay, but that's what this is saying. Until 1322. 1292 plus 30 is 1322. Okay, until the flood came and took them all away. That's Matthew 24, 39a, first clause. Until the flood came and took them all away. In other words, until the actual flood hits them, they got no clue. Even though the evidence is all around them. That's how it is with people. And we're looking at the Trump people and saying, how can they not know this guy is bad? Yeah, well, how could the Germans not know Hitler was bad? And of course, those of us who are Christians say, how can the atheists not know God? And the atheist is looking at us and saying, how can you think there is a God? Partly because of verses like this that say God just wipes them out. Until God literally wipes them out, they have no clue. They're not paying attention. They're saying no. They're plugging their ears and saying la 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 as loud as they can. So what do? To avoid infecting the rest of the human race, you take them out. Now, this really matters to know this because similar language is being used for our time later in Matthew 25:12 in particular. So this history for Russia's past applied to a specific guy, Ivan Kalita, applied to him. This same thing is happening to us now. And then you can turn around and say, okay, brain up, but, how do you know it's really him? You're saying I can apply this to any country, and you're taking his birth and his death, I haven't got to the death part yet, and saying, well, see, this is him. Well, aren't you reading that into the text? Not exactly, but it's a good question. You should ask questions like that. How do you know that I'm not reading it into the text? How do I know for sure we're talking about Ukraine and Russia? And I'll cover that in the next increment.